What's up everybody, you're watching Model Aviator, I'm Adam, and this week we have another new release announcement and review of an airplane from Horizon Hobby. Now this is one of those updated and upgraded models. Many of you will recognize the E-Flite Cherokee 1.3m. Now of course we're going to go over all of the upgrades and features, but first we'll show you how easy this thing is to get together. The manual covers what amounts to very few steps very well. As foam airplanes go, the Cherokee is one of the easiest assemblies we've seen yet. The part count is very low. We started with the main wings. There's a single spar. There are automatic plugs on the wings to plug everything in. You simply slide them into place and secure each wing with 2 bolts. Next, you'll install the main landing gear. We just push them into place and you secure them with covers and 2 screws. Next, we removed 3 screws and removed the lower tail cone. This exposes a bracket for your full flying horizontal stab. You simply place the stab and then use 2 bolts to secure it to the bracket. Be sure and snug those down, and then you simply replace your lower tail cone. Next, we installed this little antenna on the hatch latch that requires 1 screw. And at this point we suggest you go ahead and set your transmitter up and bind the airplane to your transmitter. Go ahead and take care of your preliminary pre-maiden setup, and then you can complete the last step of assembly, which is to install your prop and spinner. The Cherokee has a 51.5-inch wingspan. It's 41 inches long. Our example weighs 3 pounds, 13 ounces, ready to fly with a Spectrum Smart 4S 3250C pack. It has a 1000 kV motor, Spectrum A330 servos, a Spectrum AR631 receiver, and is intended for use with 2200 to 3200 milliamp 3 and 4S packs. As you probably just noticed, the Cherokee can be purchased 2 ways: as a bind and fly with a Spectrum compatible receiver pre-installed, or as a plug and play where you can use any protocol, choose and install the receiver yourself. This is the bind and fly, so naturally that's what we're covering today. This airplane is a 5 or 6 channel airplane out of the box. You have elevator, rudder with a steerable nose wheel, ailerons, flaps, and the flaps are interesting. They're a combination Fowler slotted flap. They come down and out and increase wing area like a Fowler, but they're slotted like a slotted flap. Very effective. You have throttle control, and you can use that 6th channel to switch between AS3X and optional safe select should you choose to activate that. One obvious update is of course the new paint scheme. It's nice when they upgrade an airplane and then give it a fresh look at the same time. It now has a nice scale blue and white paint scheme. The mold has always been good. You have a lot of panel line and rivet detail, and all the control surfaces are corrugated the way they should be on an actual Cherokee. And there are a lot of other scale details as well. You have clear windows, you have a pilot figure with a seat back, you have an instrument panel, and now they've updated the instrument panel cover to plastic so you don't have to worry about that gatoring in the sun on you. The nose wheel is a suspension nose wheel, which is scale, and that is conveniently pre-installed for you now, so you don't have to worry about adjusting or installing that. The propeller is more scale looking with painted tips, and it's a smaller diameter so that you've got more clearance up there. The airframe has always been carbon reinforced, so if you want to fly this airplane aggressive, you absolutely can. They have made one change. The bracket that you attach your full flying stab to has much less play in it now. So it's a much more precise airplane in the pitch axis, especially when you're really cooking. And of course, it retains one of the most epic lighting kits on any general aviation foam airplane ever made. This thing is a sight at dusk or early in the morning. Of course, the Cherokee retains the easily removable top hatch, and of course, that exposes a very large battery bay. There's more than enough room in there for any of the batteries in the recommended range, as well as batteries larger than 3200 milliamp if you were so inclined. The AR631 receiver is still there. Of course, that's a AS3X safe and smart receiver, but there is a caveat. This time it is unlocked right out of the box. So if you have a forward programming compatible Spectrum transmitter, you can go right in there and start making changes to AS3X, among other things, to suit your tastes. Gone is the 50 amp ESC. It now has an Avian 70 amp Smart Light ESC. And worth noting, even though you have a smaller diameter prop, the combination of the pitch of that prop and the timing of the new ESC, they've got this airplane tuned to where you're making as much power as you had with the larger prop, but it's more efficient. So that is pretty cool. And of course, with all of the smart tech within, you get smart telemetry. You'll have flight log information, minimum and maximum voltage, minimum and maximum ESC status, on the fly ESC status, current flight pack voltage, AS3X settings, a G meter, and you can get to avian programming through the transmitter as well. Of course, having the avian programming available to you means you can activate thrust reverse if you'd like, and it's right at your fingertips. When it comes to setting the Cherokee up, the manual is a great place to start. It is written in the new format where they take you step by step on how to program your transmitter, and as usual lately, Horizon is suggesting that you do that so that you learn how to program your transmitter on your own rather than downloading the setup online. All the pertinent information is there. You have CG, you have control throw, you have expo suggestions. You even have push rod placement on both the servo arm end and the control horn end. That's a great place to start. You fly it, feel it out, and then make adjustments to suit you. We did. Now, one of the adjustments that we did make was to the elevator throw, and this is the advantage of having that receiver unlocked out of the box. We were able to go into forward programming. We went in our transmitter, cranked the servo travel up to 150% on both sides, both up and down on our elevator, and then did a factory reset in forward programming on that receiver, and then just plugged the stock AS3X settings right back in, and that way the receiver took the added elevator throw to give us more travel and throw on the elevator. So we're going to put our full setup next on the setup info page. If you'd like to set your Cherokee up the way we did, you can pause that and take a look at it, and then right after that we'll go right into the flying. We're going to fly it on 3 and 4S. Enjoy the flying. We'll see you back here, and we'll give you our final thoughts after. I was impressed with the power the Cherokee had, even on 3S. What I wasn't impressed with was the weather this morning. When Heidi and I got to the field, it was 15 degrees. Warmed up to a balmy 21 before we left. If my memory serves, that's as cold a weather as I've ever flown RC in. And I'm one of those guys that can't fly with gloves. I'm a field pilot, so after about a minute, I couldn't feel my hands. While the weather was challenging for the lipos, I could have flown it longer than I did, but my hands couldn't take any more than about 5 minutes at a time. impressed with the Cherokee on 3S. Other than just more straight line speed and vertical performance with 4S, you can pretty much do anything aerobatic you want on 3S with this plane. When it comes to the buzzing noise that you're hearing at full throttle, the prop is balanced, everything is tight. This could be exacerbated by the cold, but I think that that's the wheels vibrating. It will haul the mail, and it's got vertical for days on 4-cell. The Cherokee is as stable inverted as it is right side up, and it doesn't take much down elevator to hold it. We'll do a quick grass landing and take off. Obviously it's winter time, so it's not very high. It's mostly rough dirt. But I would imagine that the extra prop clearance is going to help those of you with grass that's a bit thicker. That was a bit of a sloppy flat turn, but it's not the plane. I think it has a lot to do with the fact that I couldn't feel my hands. This is actually the very first footage that we shot. We wanted to make sure early in the morning with the light as low as possible that we showed off the light kit on the Cherokee, which is very impressive. This is the last bit of footage that we shot this particular morning. We're just doing some touch and goes with the Cherokee in a crosswind. It's in my face, so left to right relative to the plane. I wanted to use full flaps, even though sometimes with models on a crosswind that's not a great idea. Just wanted to challenge myself. Cherokee's a great airplane to practice stuff like this with. It's a stable, wide-based tricycle gear platform, and that's going to make practicing stuff like this much easier than the more narrow main gear tricycle gear or tail tracker. Obviously, you want to be able to do it with any configuration airplane, but the Cherokee is a great one to start learning crosswind skills with. So when it comes to flying the Cherokee, it's pretty much a no-brainer. Everybody already knows from the previous version that this is a very solid, honest airframe. It's got the Hershey bar wing, very docile stall characteristics, slows down really well, even with the large gamut of batteries. Now, obviously, if you notice our setup info page, we actually put the difference in weights in all the batteries. There's a 5-ounce difference in a 2200 3-cell and a 3200 4-cell. That does make a difference in flight characteristics, but the airplane still handles the heavier battery well. You just need to put it a little further back. So whatever you have, it's making plenty of power on 3-cell for pretty much anything you want to do, and then pretty ridiculous power on 4-cell, which is exactly what you want. When it comes to the new power system being a bit more efficient than the old one, the watt meter readings say that that's the truth. We are pulling less amps with this than the older version, but it does appear to have the same amount of power, so I would say that they hit that mark. Now when it comes to aerobatic capability of this airplane, I'm a decent stick, but I have a different style than my buddy Michael Klein. Michael is an old school pattern pilot, and he has a good RC channel called Michael Klein RC. We're going to put a link in the description of a video where Michael is flying the older version of this. Check it out. I love watching him fly. I think you'll enjoy it too, and to give you another perspective on just how capable a Cherokee can be. When it comes to skill level required, Horizon says this is a skill level 2 airplane. We agree. This would be a great airplane if you have mastered a trainer. Technically, you could use it as a trainer, but probably best suited as a second airplane. It's too pretty to mess up. There are trainers that are better suited for the beating that a beginner will give them. So great second plane. When it comes to price point, the new version has some things the old version didn't have, so it's gone up a bit. I think $20. I think that's a very fair price point for what you get and how solid this airplane is. And I personally love the look of it, but that's obviously going to be a matter of opinion. You can decide that for yourself. If you decide that you'd like to add a Cherokee to your hangar, we'll put a link in the description where you can go through and get right to it. And when you use that link, it helps support our channel. When you do that, Heidi and I appreciate it. Thank you very much for supporting our efforts. That's it for us. Take care of yourselves. Happy flying. We'll see you next week with something cool with wings.